Alright, welcome back to another homework video. This time we're going to be taking a look at semester 2 homework number 5. So you were told to obviously update the textbook and then go to the homework 5 folder and then take a look at what was basically Wordle. And so Dr. Neat gave you almost the entire program, and what he gave you did run, but he gave you just a .class file, not the .java file. So hopefully after you looked at it, you realized that mysteryword.java was missing. And so you realize, oh, hey, I have to write mysteryword.java. There was a lot of confusion about that in my class, but that was what he was intending, was for you guys to write mysteryword.java because everything else was already there. So because of that, there are a lot of files here, but he just wanted you to write this one class, so that's what we're going to be looking at today, because he told you not to really change these in your final answer. And obviously he said that you can for testing purposes, which I would very much recommend that you do, and I did. When I did this on my other computer, to add another txt file called shorter words. That was, 5 words, so I could actually know what it would be instead of this really long list, to make testing easier, which I always recommend, especially when you're working with really, really, really long lists of data. Make a subset of data that's shorter and easier to work with, so you can ensure that the program works well with the short data, and then you can run it a couple times with the long data and make sure that also works. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So we have this mystery word class here. And what this is doing is this is providing so if you take a look at the PSVM, we have to figure out what methods are in this, right? Because we're not given anything. So let me go ahead and pull up the PSVM there. So if we go through all of this, we realize that mystery word has, is this the one where it is? One sec, you guys. Sorry, I realized that it's not a PSVM, it's in Wordle. So if you take a look at Wordle, we have mystery word Bob. So let's see what we do with Bob to figure out what methods we have to write. So Bob equals new mystery word. So here's our constructor and words of len. So this is an index of an array. Word len, or words is it's an array of strings, so then one index from that has to be a string. So our only parameter for this constructor is a string. And then let's go ahead and keep going down. Anytime we see Bob, we have to figure out kind of what it's doing. So here we go. GuessHint, and GuessHint is a string, so this is a method that returns a string, equals bob.getHint string guess. So then while not GuessHint dot equals, okay, so that's what GuessHint, so that's what we return. Keep going down and don't get hint again. So it looks like mystery word has a constructor with parameter of a string, and then one method here, which is get hint. So based on the name, we can probably figure out what that does, and that provides the user with the hint with the letters or the plus signs or the asterisks. And remember, if you just returned a letter, then that means that that letter is in the correct answer in that spot. And if you are given a plus sign, it means that that letter is in the word, just not in that spot. And if you're given an asterisk, it means that letter is not in the word at all. So based on that, now we know what our assignment is. And so this one took a little bit of work of like reading code and trying to figure out like what exactly is our task, like what do we need to do. But once you figure that out, then we can go ahead and get started on mystery word. So here's our so we have a private string answer that I'll get to. This is just our private variable. So you can see that our constructor is, like I said, one parameter is a string, and then we just go ahead and set that string to our private variable so that we can use it in our method. And I named it answer because this is, if you go back and look at wordle.java, what you do is wordlen is the array of all of the words in that file. And then so wordlen is a random number, and then words of wordlen is answer, so he tells you that. And then we want to give the answer to mystery word. So based on the variable names, we can figure out what this parameter is supposed to be in terms of Wordle. So mystery word needs to know what the answer is, and that makes sense too in terms of what we're trying to do. We're trying to compare the hint string that we're building, right, out of letters and asterisks and plus signs. We're trying to build that based on the answer. So mystery word obviously has to have access to the answer. And we do that through the constructor. So moving on, string. So this returns a string, like we said, because it returned the guess hint, I think is what he called it. And then we just take in one string parameter, which is also how it works down there. So it takes in what the user guessed. So then moving on. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So now what we're going to try to do is we want to return the hint that is printed out on the screen after they put in their guess. So these first two if statements, Dr. Nee actually didn't do this. If you put, it tells you how long the word is, and if you put in a guess that is too long or too short, in his, it will give you I think it's an index out of bounds runtime error. And I went ahead and fixed that. So if the guess.length is greater than the answer.length, it tells you your guess is too long. It returns -1 because you have to return something. And then the program keeps running because then this variable here, guess hint is not null, it's -1, which of course is not going to be the word because that's not a word, that's a number. And so the program just says guess again, counts that as an incorrect guess. And then same thing here, if it's less than, your guess is too short, returns -1, we keep going. So then if you didn't cover that, that's fine. But I went ahead and did that. And then so once the computer says, hey, okay, this guess is, the length that we want it to be, we get started. So we have string hint, which is nothing for now, but that's eventually going to be what we return to the user. And then int toggle, which I'll get to in a second. So now what we want to do is, because we're comparing every single letter, right, to all of the other letters, so we want to have this big, long for loop. And so while it's less than answer.length, if answer.substring a comma a plus 1 dot equals guess.substring a comma a plus 1. So let's say the first letter that they guessed, in the word that they guessed is a C, and the first letter in the answer is a C, and we're going to go inside this if statement because at the same position in the word, they're the same. So we say hint equals hint plus answer.substring, and you can do this. So right now, hint is nothing, so we'd add a C to hint because we want to add what that letter was. And for this one, the way that I'm doing it, I could do it .guess as well because they're the same thing. Remember, that's how we get inside the if statement in the first place. So if they are not the same, and this if else is really important here because if I just have another if and then run the rest of this with the plus signs, it's going to give me a bunch of plus signs because this letter is in the answer, and so if I don't have this else, it's going to give me a bunch of plus signs because it's going to say, hey, that letter's in the answer, and then it's just going to give me plus signs where I don't want it. But we know that if it's in the same place, we just want the letter. We don't want any plus signs. So if else, so if it's not exactly the same, we're going to go into another smaller for loop. And we're going to say in B, normal for loop header, and then if guess.substring of A, so this is the bigger for loop, so we're going to stop moving onwards with A for a second and go through this B loop, dot equals answer.substring B comma B plus 1. So we're comparing, so let's say we're looking at like the second letter, like let's say we ran this once, so A is now 1, which is the second index. Then B is comparing it to all of the other ones, and then we want to double check and say like B is, so if B, which is not it's not A, then if they're the same, then we go ahead and add a plus sign because then we're saying, hey, that letter is in the string, just not exactly in that position because we didn't go into this if statement. And then so then toggle equals 1, and why that's important is because also once we get through all of this, so if we go through this entire thing and we look for this letter, whatever guess.substring of A is, and we don't find it, so we never set toggle to 1. So if toggle is still 0, we're going to add an asterisk, and then we're going to set toggle back to 0. So if we find a plus sign, we don't also want to put an asterisk if we keep going in this else. So I went ahead and put a toggle variable. You can probably do that with another version of an if statement as well, but this makes sense to me. So I put I call these toggle variables, and they're it's either 0 or 1 at all times. And then so if we already have a plus sign, we don't want an asterisk, so we have it toggled off, so to speak. And then this if statement says, hey, we have it as 1, so we're not going to go in there, and we're going to set it back to 0 for the next time we run through the for loop. But if you don't hit this, so if we find nothing and we add no plus signs and we didn't go in here either, then toggle is still going to be 0, and then we're going to add an asterisk. So then we set toggle back to 0 and keep going. And then after we do all this, we have compiled by adding either the letter, plus signs, or asterisks. We've compiled a complete string, and we call it hint, and so we return hint. And then that's the end of the method. And so like we said, that's the only method that mystery word has. And so if you do that, let me just show you it running. So let me compile it really quickly, and then we'll run it. And if it's super hard, I won't. Okay, so I probably am not going to get that. What is 9 letters? I always turn caps lock on while I'm doing this. Oh gosh, let me see if I can get a shorter one. Hold on. Okay, 6 letters. I think I can do that. Alright, so none of those letters are in that word. Is that 6 letters? Oh, no. So it just tells me -1. That's still 5. Wow. Okay, so there's an A right there. And, well, you can see the point. So we have an A, and then we have plus signs, and then we have asterisks. I won't bore you with you watching me play the rest of this. So, yeah, there you go. You can see that this works. Hopefully you have something similar to this. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments below. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you for watching.